Hello and welcome back to Asian Gaming 720, and today we're going to be doing something rather different because after the leaked images from set of Doctor Who Season 12, I thought let's do a video like this so that way when the episode comes out in 2020 we can compare the design and place it on this list. So yeah, we're going to be doing a top 10 Cybermen, well, ranking all of them. But I mean, there's 10 of them. I'm not for the main. I'm not including like cyber controllers or cyber leaders or anything. I do have 2 on here, but that's because they are different in their own way. So I thought that would be interesting, those 2 to put in there. But in the main, it's more just the design and not variations of that design as well. If you understand what I mean. Anyway. So yeah, let's get into it with number 10. So yeah, at number 10, we have got the Attack of the Cybermen Controller. Now, the Attack of the Cybermen Controller is a variation of the Earthshock Cybermen. And to me, he just looks a bit too bulky. It is basically just the same design, but without the headphoney parts, like the bits that go up and then to the side, and more of just a bigger head, and it just looked a bit weird. I'm not a massive fan of it. Yeah, and like I said, he does look a bit bulky, and I don't think that should matter too much, and it doesn't really. But it, along with everything, it just impacts it a bit negatively, if you know what I mean. But so yeah, he's my least favourite design, and it's for those simple reasons it impacts it. Maybe if they had some more variations with him, I don't know, maybe some like black around the head, like some of the other controller designs. But yeah, it's really not a whole lot. Anyway, let's move on to the next on the list. So anyway, moving on to number 9, we have the Nightmare and Silver designs, and I don't think these are really that bad design. They look pretty good, just not as Cybermen and more Iron Man. I mean, clearly you can see on the pictures they have an arc reactor. It's not called that, but it's basically one. Their helmet is quite Iron Man-y and they fly. So yeah, it's very much more Iron Man-y. And actually, if we look at the release dates of these episodes, I mean, it's pretty similar, and Iron Man was quite popular at the time, so I can see why they would want to try and, make it look more like something that's popular, but yeah, it doesn't really work, and don't really need to see these designs. I do respect the fact that Moffat did use these Cybermen, bring them back in different stories instead of just forgetting them, like the victory of the Daleks. Yeah, he just tried to move past those as quickly as possible. So yeah, but I don't think it's that bad of a design. Just it would work better as something else, maybe just a one-off villain, and remove a few of the Cyberman elements that they have in it and then make a one-time thing. But yeah, let's move on. And at number 8 we have the Tomb of the Cybermen Cyber Controller, and we're getting into the section where things are actually pretty good, and I don't mind seeing them. But you can already tell by my least favourite being a controller and this one being a controller, that I'm not a fan of the controller. I like the design of having the handles on the side of the helmet. I don't really like it when they replace those and have nothing there and just big heads. That just doesn't look that great for me. The Tomb Cybermen are really good, and you're going to see where I place those on the list, and yeah, you won't be massively surprised. I give those ones a lot of praise. But it still looks great, but it doesn't look as good as the Tomb ones. And the head just looks a bit too big for my liking. So yeah, there's not a whole lot I can say. It just, there's less to it. The whole thing looks a bit more blank. And I'm not a massive fan of that kind of style. So yeah, it's good overall, but I think there are improvements I would make to it. Anyway, let's move on to number 7. So yeah, at number 7 we have the Revenge of the Cybermen, and I'm not a massive fan of the design. The tubes instead of the handles design isn't my favourite. I mean, I like the torso and like chest pieces and stuff like that. It's very similar to the 70s designs, but the head, it isn't quite like what I would expect. It's not what I particularly want. That piping is just, So yeah, I think overall it's pretty decent, but that piping just kind of ruins it for me. But I think we should move on because we're getting into the nearly top 5. Where next is 6, so not doing too badly. Anyway, moving on. Now this one might be a little bit controversial. I have seen people who've put this in their top 3s. I do see lots of people praising this one quite a lot, and this one did appear in the majority through all of the 80s. This is the 80s design, and yes, I'm talking about the Earthshock Cybermen. They do also appear in Silver Nemesis and slightly different colorings, but it's still technically the same design, so I'm just going to include it all in that one. These designs, in my opinion, are overrated, but they're not the worst. But they do look a little cheap. I'm not a fan of that chest unit. The head is, similar to what we've had before, except I'm not a fan of the line it has in the middle of it. I do think the suit, like the underneath the chest unit and stuff, looks a bit baggy. Yeah, it's not a massive thing. I feel like I'm giving this one a bit more criticism than I've given some of the previous ones on this list. So yeah, it is a good design and it's pretty iconic, but it's definitely not the best, and it is massively overrated. Anyway, moving on to the next design, and we're getting into some pretty good ones now at this point. So here we are, top 5, Wheel in Space Cybermen. Now, I will say these are very similar to the Moonbase and Tomb of the Cybermen, but the voice is a downgrade, and I think like some little costume changes overall a little bit worse. I don't like saying worse this close, to number 1. But it's not as good as those two. But it's still, it's still pretty good. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one because it is a good design, but I'm saying this a lot. It's definitely not the best or anything. I don't think anyone would think this one is the best. As far as I'm aware, I haven't seen anyone who has this as their favourite. So, I do like all the individual elements of this costume. Just the Moonbase and Tomb ones are better in most regards, especially the voice. So yeah, but we'll get around to that when we get to, the Tomb and Moonbase. Now, this one might be a little bit controversial. I don't see many people have these quite so high up on their lists. But number 4, we have the Invasion Cybermen, and I do think it's maybe a tad nostalgic, because I do have an action figure of this Cyberman, and I do remember playing with that one a lot when I was a kid, and I love it. So maybe that I haven't actually seen the invasion, and I do plan on seeing it soon. But this, you know, the like the pictures and stuff of the Cybermen wandering around on the streets, it's iconic, and I do really like the design. I think even the elements that some people may call a little bit cheap, like the zipper and stuff, I think it adds to the effect. It makes it look pretty cool, and it's it's a quite big redesign, like from Tomb. Like, it's not a massive redesign, but they've taken the Tomb and they've made quite a few changes along the way. This is like the first proper time we see the sort of earmuff sort of designs on there, which I think is pretty cool because I quite like those. So yeah, overall this design is quite cool, and you know, it's interesting. I like looking at this one, and it's a pretty great action figure. Which, anyway, I'm sort of rambling on a bit now, but yeah, it is a pretty good design, and I do quite like it quite a lot. Like, if I wanted a Cyberman to be returned, it would probably be this one, and the two Moon-based ones. I mean, I know there's there's other Cybermen. There's like 3 other Cybermen designs, because we've got the top 3 and this one that could also return, but I don't think they need to return. And I kind of understand why in a minute. So yeah, we're going to go on to number 3 now. So at number 3 we have the Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel Cybermen, the Cybus Cybermen, and they did appear. So far they've appeared through the majority of New Who, and yeah, I grew up with these designs. These are the first Cybermen designs I ever saw. I love them. They do look really good. I do like the whole design. It's a bit. It feels a bit more metallic compared to what we got in Classic. And yeah, okay, sure, they feel a bit more robotic, but I do also love that little wiring that you can see under the metal and stuff. This design is really, really good. And yeah, okay, compared to the Classic Cybermen, and these are definitely more robotic, and they march in lines and stuff. But I never minded that, because as a child I'd never seen any Classic Cybermen stories, so this is the Cybermen for me. And I mean, I know Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel is an okay story, but yeah, it's pretty good. And the next appearance, Doomsday and whatever the other episode in that one's called, that was, pretty decent. Then the next appearance, the next dog. I'm not going to go through all the appearances, but the Cyber Leaders are basically just the same, but with black handles, which, it's just the same design, just with black handles. It's really nothing. Then we've got the Next Doctor Cyber Leader, and that is a big difference, and I was tempted to put it on this list as its own thing, but I don't think it needs to, because it's still the same design, but you can just see a brain and a bit more black on the face. I still think I prefer the individual design of the Cybermen from this era more anyway, but I mean, we've also got the John Lumick Cyberman. I can't even remember if he was called a Cyber Leader or whether he had like another name. I can't remember. I think it was Cyber Controller actually, but whatever. He looks pretty decent, but I think he's the worst looking of the lot. So yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, this is probably the most nostalgic one on this list, because childhood stuff, and it does look good. So yeah, moving on next to number 2, nearly at the bottom now. Now, for me, this is when it started getting a little close, because these bottom 2 designs I really love, and I did have to consult a friend on what he thought as well, and I thought, yeah, that makes sense, and I do think that it works, and that's the one that I think fits for me the most. So yeah, at number 2 we have the Mondasian Cybermen, the original Cybermen. They look great in the 60s with that low budget kind of look. Wait, you can clearly tell it is low budget. And then the 2017 remake for World Enough and Time, The Doctor Falls, that's also great. And that if the 60s design had, the kind of budget that they had in 2017, it'd probably look like that as well. So I don't include the 2 of them separately. I think they are the same design, and I'll include them as the same. And I always loved the Mondasian before even World Enough and Time released, and I do have an action figure of this one as well, because there was a set of the 3 of them. I'll find a picture of that. With the 3 of them, which I think I got for a birthday or something, back in the time when it released. So yeah, that was loads of fun to have those classic Cybermen designs. That's why I probably love them most. So yeah, number 1. So yeah, and number 1, you've probably guessed it by now. If you do know your Cybermen designs, we have the Moonbase / Tomb of the Cybermen design, and wow, everything about this design is just incredible. I love it. It's brilliant. The handles look really great. The face, the chest units, just the design overall. I do have an action figure of this one. A little bit disappointed it is broken. Like the handles is missing and the hands are missing. So yeah, I do have to hide those behind my other Cybermen figures. But anyway, I saw Tomb of the Cybermen a couple of months ago. Brilliant, probably my favourite Cybermen story. The music in that is really good. I've put it back in the back of this video. The tomb bits probably would be near the beginning of the video. But that scene when they're coming out of the freezers or whatever they're called, when the Cybermen first wake up in that story, come out, they're pulling their way through the things. It's just chilling and it's amazing. And the voices are really, really, really good. And I'm gonna play a video of their voices just here because that is amazing. You shall be like us. I love these designs, if you can't tell. So yeah, that is all the Cybermen designs ranked. I have excluded a few, like the Flood Cybermen from the comics, and I tried to stay away from the comics and audio one because I haven't read any of them or haven't listened to any of them because I can't be bothered with that right now. But yeah, so I decided I'd try and stay with the on-screen ones, and I tried to stay with main ones and try to put controllers and cyber leaders with their respective designs instead of making them different. Except for like 2 of them near the beginning because they are quite different. There is also another one that does get a special mention. I can't even remember what it's called, but I think it's in Attack of the Cybermen. There's a black one. There's like a fully black Cyberman. You see it like in the background. I don't think it says any lines. It's just in the background, which I would have liked to have seen more of. But that's why it doesn't get a ranking because you don't see much of it at all. So yeah. Anyway, before I finish off, there is a Discord server, the official Agent Gaming 720 Discord server. The link is in the description. You know, it's not terribly active, but I do post when, like, little things of when I'm posting videos and stuff, and I do keep updated on there. Yeah, you know, it's just a nice little community for my channel. So, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you all soon.